Black woman took in 4 homeless kids. 20 years later, they ended her life sentence in a small neighborhood filled with worn-out houses and streets that carried the echoes of everyday struggles. Lived a woman named Clara. She was in her late 30s, a black woman with kind eyes and hands that were always busy helping someone. Her life was far from easy. She worked 2 jobs, one at a local grocery store during the day and another at a diner in the evenings. Despite the fatigue that often weighed her down, Clara never let it dull her spirit. She carried a heart that was generous, a heart that believed in kindness, even when the world seemed harsh and unfair. Clara had grown up in the same neighborhood. She knew the pain of hardship well. As a child, she had often gone to bed hungry, watched neighbors struggle, and witnessed how difficult life could be when there was little support. Yet, she had also learned that small acts of love and care could make a world of difference. That belief had guided her through her own challenges, and now, in her adult life, she felt a strong responsibility to help those who were even less fortunate than herself. One chilly autumn afternoon, as she walked home from the grocery store, Clara noticed 4 children huddled together near the corner of a quiet street. They looked cold, their clothes tattered and thin, and their faces were pale from hunger and worry. Their eyes, though wary, seemed to plead silently for help. Clara's heart ached at the sight. She had seen homeless children before, but there was something different about these 4. They weren't just wandering, they looked lost, like they had been abandoned by the world. Without hesitation, Clara approached them. She knelt down to meet their gaze. "Hi there," she said softly, her voice carrying warmth. "Are you okay? Do you need some food?" The oldest of the 4, a boy of about 12, looked at her suspiciously. "Who are you?" he asked. His voice was quiet, cautious, as if he had learned not to trust adults. "I'm Clara," she replied gently. "I live nearby. I can help you. Do you want to come with me?" The boy glanced at the others. A little girl, no older than 8, clutched a small, worn-out doll to her chest. Another boy, around 10, looked down at the ground, refusing to meet Clara's eyes. And the youngest, a girl of maybe 6, shivered in the cold and hugged herself tightly. They had been living on the streets for weeks, surviving on scraps of food and whatever shelter they could find. The streets had taught them to be cautious, to avoid strangers, and to protect each other at all costs. Clara could see the hesitation in their eyes, the fear mixed with hope. She smiled softly and said, "I know it's scary, but I promise you, you'll be safe with me. I have food, warm blankets, and a place to sleep. You won't have to be alone anymore." It took some time, but slowly, the children began to trust her. She offered them warm sandwiches and cups of cocoa, which they accepted cautiously at first. As they ate, Clara listened to their stories, snippets of lives disrupted by circumstances beyond their control. They spoke of parents who had disappeared, of shelters that were overcrowded, of nights spent huddled under bridges to stay warm. Each story was heartbreaking, but Clara remained patient, offering gentle reassurances and silent understanding. By the end of the evening, Clara had convinced them to come with her. She knew it wouldn't be easy. Taking in 4 children meant more responsibilities, more sacrifices, and more challenges than she could count. But something inside her told her that she had to do it. She had to give these children a chance to experience safety, warmth, and love, a chance they hadn't had in a long time. Her apartment was small, modest, and worn, but it was clean and welcoming. She showed the children their new beds, arranged blankets, and made sure each of them had a small space they could call their own. That night, for the first time in weeks, the children slept without fear, wrapped in warmth and comfort. Clara stayed up late, listening to the soft sounds of their breathing, feeling a mixture of exhaustion and quiet joy. She knew the road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time, she felt hope, not just for herself, but for the 4 children she had taken in. In the days that followed, Clara worked tirelessly to adjust to this new reality. She continued her jobs, waking early in the morning to prepare breakfast for the children before rushing to the grocery store. Evenings were spent helping them with basic reading, teaching them how to do simple chores, and providing guidance that they had not received elsewhere. She encouraged them to speak openly about their feelings, to express their fears, and to dream about a future that had once seemed impossible. The children, in turn, began to respond to her love and patience. They were shy at first, wary of forming attachments, but gradually, they started to open up. The oldest boy, who had been the most hesitant, began to help with household tasks and looked after the younger ones, slowly assuming the role of a protective older brother. The little girls started to smile more, their laughter filling the small apartment with warmth and life. The middle boy discovered a love for drawing, and Clara encouraged him to create art, finding old crayons and paper to fuel his creativity. Neighbors began to notice the change too. Some were skeptical, questioning how one woman could handle 4 children alone. Others were inspired by her dedication and compassion, offering small acts of help, a bag of groceries, clothing donations, or words of encouragement. Clara accepted assistance when it was offered, but she remained determined to provide the best life she could for the children, relying mostly on her own strength and love. Over time, the bond between Clara and the children grew stronger. She became more than just a guardian, she was a mother in every sense of the word. They celebrated small victories together: the first school project completed, the first meal they cooked themselves, the first night they slept without fear. Each moment, no matter how small, became a testament to the power of love, resilience, and unwavering support. Clara often reflected on why she had made this choice. She could have turned away, citing her own limitations, her lack of resources, or the sheer difficulty of the task. But something inside her knew that she couldn't. These children had been forgotten by the world, but not by her. She believed that every child deserved a chance to be seen, to be cared for, and to grow up knowing they were valued. Even in the hardest moments, when money was tight, when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her, when doubts crept in, Clara never gave up. Her heart reminded her that love was stronger than fear, that kindness could create change, and that hope could grow even in the most difficult circumstances. And slowly, the children began to feel the truth of those words. They began to trust not just Clara, but the idea that life could be good, that they could belong somewhere, and that they were capable of more than they had ever imagined. By the end of the first year, Clara's apartment was no longer just a small living space. It had become a home. Walls that had once seemed bare now held drawings, pictures, and reminders of moments shared. The laughter of children filled the rooms, replacing the emptiness that had once dominated their lives. And though the challenges of the world were still waiting outside, inside that small apartment, hope had taken root. Clara knew the journey ahead would be long. There would be struggles, setbacks, and obstacles that she could not yet foresee. But as she looked at the 4 children she had taken in, she felt a deep, unshakable certainty. She had made the right choice. She had opened her heart when the world had turned away, and in doing so, she had created something extraordinary: a family built not by blood, but by love, trust, and courage. And in that small apartment, on a quiet street in a neighborhood that had known too much hardship, a new story was beginning. It was a story of hope, of resilience, and of the remarkable power of one person's kindness to change the lives of many. Life with 4 children was never easy for Clara, but she faced each day with courage and determination. Every morning, she woke before sunrise, making sure the children had something warm to eat before heading off to school. Some mornings, it felt like the weight of the world rested on her shoulders. Bills piled up, her jobs were exhausting, and she often had barely enough energy to keep going. But whenever she looked at the children sleepy-eyed, clutching their breakfast, trying to smile despite the early hour, she found the strength to keep moving forward. The children, still adjusting to their new life, had their own struggles. The oldest boy, Marcus, had learned on the streets to fend for himself, and trusting adults did not come easily. He sometimes acted out, testing boundaries, questioning rules, and pushing Clara to her limits. She understood it was not rebellion, but fear and habit from years of survival on his own. She met each challenge with patience. When Marcus shouted or stormed out of the apartment, she waited, letting him calm down, then gently spoke to him about feelings, trust, and the importance of family. The younger children had their own battles. Lily, the 8-year-old girl, often had nightmares about sleeping on the streets, and she would wake crying, afraid the night had returned. Clara would hold her close, whispering comforting words, reminding her that she was safe, and that the streets would never touch her again. Tommy, the 10-year-old boy, was quiet and withdrawn. He had difficulty expressing himself, often keeping feelings bottled up until frustration spilled over in small, sometimes destructive ways, like drawing angrily on walls or snapping at his siblings. And little Mia, only 6, needed constant reassurance that she was loved, that she was not alone, and that life could be gentle. Clara learned quickly that love alone was not enough. Raising these children required structure, patience, and consistency. She set simple rules: meals together, bedtime routines, and chores to teach responsibility. At first, the children resisted, unsure how to respond to rules and expectations that were new to them. They were used to doing whatever they wanted to survive, and suddenly, they had to follow routines and schedules. Clara understood the importance of balance. She did not enforce rules harshly, instead, she explained why routines mattered, helping them see that structure could bring security rather than punishment. Money was always tight. Clara had to make difficult choices: rent, groceries, and utility bills were constant concerns. She found creative ways to stretch every dollar, cooking meals from inexpensive ingredients, shopping at discount stores, and reusing whatever she could. She involved the children in the process, teaching them how to budget, how to save, and how to appreciate what they had. Surprisingly, the children adapted quickly, proud to help and feeling a sense of accomplishment when they contributed. Despite the hardships, Clara made sure to provide moments of joy. She would take the children to the local park on weekends, sharing homemade treats and encouraging them to play and laugh. She took them on short trips to the library, opening doors to worlds they had never known: books about faraway places, stories of hope and courage, and tales of people overcoming challenges. She taught them to dream, to imagine possibilities beyond the streets they had once called home. School was another challenge. Some of the children had missed months, even years, of consistent education. Teachers were sometimes skeptical, warning Clara that they might struggle academically or socially. But Clara refused to give up. She spent evenings helping with homework, practicing reading, and patiently explaining lessons until the children understood. Slowly, their confidence grew. They began to enjoy learning, to ask questions, and to see themselves as capable, intelligent individuals. Even outside of school, Clara encouraged creativity. Marcus loved sports, and she found ways to keep him active, joining local youth programs whenever she could. Tommy discovered a talent for drawing, and Clara collected old paper, pencils, and crayons, turning their living room into a small art studio. Lily showed interest in music, and Clara borrowed a second-hand keyboard from a neighbor so she could practice at home. Each small victory was celebrated with smiles, hugs, and encouragement, building their self-esteem and reinforcing the bond they shared. Yet life was not always filled with small victories. There were days when frustration and fatigue overwhelmed them all. Arguments erupted over trivial matters: a missing coat, a spilled cup of milk, or a misunderstood word. Sometimes, Clara herself felt the weight of exhaustion and doubt. She wondered if she was doing enough, if her sacrifices were enough, if she could ever truly make up for the hardships these children had endured. In those moments, she reminded herself why she had started this journey. She reminded herself that love, patience, and persistence could heal wounds, and that no matter how small the progress, it was still progress. The children, in turn, began to understand Clara's sacrifices. They noticed her tired eyes, the way she sometimes went without meals so they could eat, the hours she spent working multiple jobs just to provide for them. Slowly, they began to reciprocate her care in small but meaningful ways. Marcus would help with chores without being asked. Tommy began drawing cards for Clara, expressing gratitude in his quiet way. Lily learned to cook simple meals and clean up after herself. And Mia, though still young, would offer hugs, smiles, and words of encouragement, brightening Clara's long days. Through it all, the neighborhood watched. Some people admired Clara's determination, offering support whenever they could, extra clothing, groceries, or a listening ear. Others doubted her ability to handle 4 children alone, questioning her decisions and whispering judgments behind her back. Clara ignored the criticism. She knew that she could not control what others thought. She could only control her actions, her love, and her commitment to the children she had taken in. As the years passed, the bond between Clara and the children deepened. They were no longer just her wards, they had become her family. They celebrated birthdays together, shared small victories, and comforted each other in times of sorrow. Clara's small apartment was now filled with laughter, chatter, and the energy of growing children. It was a home where love was visible in every corner, where resilience was taught through example, and where hope replaced the fear that had once dominated their lives. Clara often reflected on the journey. She remembered the day she had found the children on the street, how their eyes had looked at her with a mixture of fear and hope. She thought about the sacrifices she had made, the long nights, the endless work, and the constant worry. But she also remembered the moments of joy, the laughter that filled her apartment, the small victories that proved her efforts were worth it. And in those reflections, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that she had given the children something far more valuable than food or shelter. She had given them love, safety, and the chance to believe in a better future. Even as challenges continued, school difficulties, financial struggles, and emotional scars from the children's past, Clara remained steadfast. She believed that patience, consistency, and care could heal wounds over time. And slowly, she saw the changes. The children were learning to trust again. They were learning to dream, to hope, and to see themselves as worthy of love and happiness. They were learning that family was not always about blood, but about those who chose to stand by you, protect you, and love you unconditionally. And in that small apartment, amid the clutter, the laughter, and the love, Clara found her purpose. She knew that life had not been easy for her, and it had not been easy for the children. But together, they were building something beautiful, a family formed not by circumstance, but by choice. A family built on love, resilience, and hope. And as the seasons changed outside their window, Clara knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, stronger for the love they shared and the bond they had created. As the years went by, the 4 children grew stronger, smarter, and more confident under Clara's careful guidance. Life was still not easy, but the home they shared became a place of hope, learning, and laughter. Clara had always believed in the power of education, creativity, and discipline, and she worked tirelessly to ensure the children could reach their full potential. She knew that giving them stability and support now could shape the rest of their lives. Marcus, the oldest, began to emerge as a natural leader. He had always been protective of the younger children, but now he started to understand the importance of responsibility and accountability. Clara encouraged him to take school seriously, attend extracurricular activities, and even help tutor his siblings when they struggled with homework. At first, Marcus was reluctant. He was used to being independent, and asking for help had never been his way. But with Clara's patience and encouragement, he slowly began to embrace the structure she provided. He discovered that learning was not just about schoolwork, it was about understanding the world and finding his place in it. Tommy, who had been quiet and withdrawn, started to express himself through art. He would spend hours drawing pictures of their small apartment, their neighborhood, and the dreams he had for the future. Clara noticed his talent early on and encouraged him to enter local art contests. Sometimes, they could barely afford the materials he needed, but she would find scraps of paper, old pencils, and anything she could gather to help him create. When Tommy won his first small contest, the pride in his eyes was unforgettable. It was the first time he truly believed in himself, and Clara celebrated alongside him, knowing that each small victory was a step toward a brighter future. Lily, the younger girl, discovered a love for music. She would hum melodies while doing chores, tap rhythms on the table, and sometimes even sing quietly before bedtime. Clara recognized her talent and borrowed a second-hand keyboard from a neighbor so Lily could practice. Music became a source of comfort and joy for her, a way to express feelings she could not always put into words. Clara made time every evening to sit with her, learning simple songs together, and watching Lily's confidence grow with every note she played. Mia, the youngest, began to develop a sense of empathy and care for everyone around her. She had always been sensitive, and Clara nurtured that trait, teaching her to be kind, patient, and supportive. Mia would often help the younger children in the neighborhood, share her toys, or comfort a friend in need. Clara saw in her the beginnings of a compassionate leader, someone who could make the world better in small, meaningful ways. Despite these successes, life was far from perfect. Challenges arose constantly. Schoolwork became more difficult as the children advanced in grades, financial pressures grew heavier, and Clara's health sometimes suffered from exhaustion. There were moments when the children argued, when tempers flared, and when the weight of responsibility seemed too much for everyone to bear. Clara handled each situation with care, teaching them problem-solving, patience, and forgiveness. She showed them that mistakes were part of learning, and that challenges were opportunities to grow stronger. The neighborhood began to notice the changes in the children. Teachers commented on their improved behavior and academic progress. Neighbors, who had once doubted Clara's ability to manage 4 children on her own, began to admire her dedication and resilience. Some offered help, a bag of groceries, extra clothing, or even tutoring for the children, but Clara always made sure that the children learned the value of hard work and independence. She wanted them to understand that while support was important, personal effort and determination were essential to succeed. Clara also encouraged the children to set goals and dream big. She helped Marcus prepare for college applications, guided Tommy in creating an art portfolio, supported Lily in joining a youth music program, and encouraged Mia to volunteer and help others. Each child began to understand that their past did not define them, and that with effort, guidance, and perseverance, they could create a future filled with possibilities. There were also moments of joy that reminded Clara why she had taken in the children in the first place. Family game nights became a tradition, filled with laughter, playful arguments, and shared memories. Simple outings to the park, library, or local museum became adventures, exposing the children to the beauty and knowledge of the world outside their small apartment. Clara celebrated each holiday with small but meaningful traditions: home-cooked meals, handmade gifts, and heartfelt conversations about gratitude and love. These moments strengthened their bond, making the apartment not just a place to live, but a true home filled with warmth and security. Even as the children flourished, Clara faced her own internal struggles. She worried constantly about the future, about the obstacles the children might face, and about whether she was doing enough to prepare them for the world. There were nights when she lay awake, thinking about the sacrifices she had made, the opportunities she had missed, and the constant demands on her time and energy. But each morning, she reminded herself of the progress they had made, the laughter that filled the apartment, and the love that held them together. That love was their foundation, and it gave her strength to continue. The children's growth also brought challenges in navigating their own identities. Having experienced homelessness and hardship, they sometimes struggled with feelings of insecurity and self-doubt. Clara provided guidance and reassurance, teaching them to value themselves, recognize their strengths, and overcome fears. She shared her own experiences, letting them know that struggle was a part of life, but it did not determine their worth or potential. Through her mentorship, they began to see themselves as capable, resilient, and deserving of success. As the years went on, the children began to achieve small but significant milestones. Marcus excelled in sports and academics, gaining the respect of his teachers and peers. Tommy's artwork was recognized in local exhibitions, giving him confidence and a sense of accomplishment. Lily's musical performances became a source of pride for the family, and she even started teaching herself more advanced techniques. Mia, ever compassionate, became a leader among her peers, organizing small acts of kindness in their neighborhood. Each success reinforced the idea that their lives were changing for the better, thanks to Clara's unwavering support and guidance. Through all of this, Clara remained humble. She rarely sought praise or recognition for her efforts, believing that the children's success was the true reward. She measured her accomplishments by their growth, their happiness, and their sense of security. Watching them thrive became her purpose, and even when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her, the sight of their smiles, laughter, and achievements renewed her energy. The bond between Clara and the children grew unbreakable. They had faced hardship together, celebrated victories together, and learned life's lessons together. They became a family not defined by blood, but by choice, love, and resilience. Each child understood that Clara's sacrifices were acts of love, and each began to internalize the values she had instilled: hard work, empathy, creativity, and perseverance. As the children approached their teenage years, Clara's guidance became even more critical. She helped them navigate social challenges, peer pressure, and the complex emotions of adolescence. She remained a constant source of support, listening without judgment, offering advice, and providing comfort when needed. The children, in turn, grew to trust her implicitly, knowing that no matter what difficulties arose, she would stand by them and help them find their way. Clara's small apartment, once quiet and modest, had transformed into a hub of energy, creativity, and learning. The walls were adorned with drawings, paintings, and awards. Music filled the air regularly. Laughter, playful arguments, and conversations about dreams and aspirations became the soundtrack of their lives. It was a home where love and hope flourished, where every child felt seen, valued, and supported. Through all the struggles, the sacrifices, and the challenges, Clara never wavered in her commitment. She knew that the future was uncertain, that life could bring new difficulties, and that the world was not always kind. But she also knew that the foundation she had built of love, trust, and guidance would give the children the strength to face whatever came their way. And as they continued to grow, achieve, and learn, Clara felt a quiet pride, knowing that the seeds of hope she had planted were blossoming into something extraordinary. Years of dedication, patience, and care had created a remarkable transformation. The children were no longer the frightened, vulnerable kids Clara had found on the streets. They were confident, talented, and hopeful young individuals, prepared to face the world with resilience and courage. And through it all, Clara remained the constant anchor in their lives, the one who had believed in them when no one else did, the one who had given them a chance to dream, and the one whose love had changed their lives forever. Life seemed to be settling into a rhythm for Clara and the children, each day marked by routines, laughter, and progress. The children were growing into capable young adults, thriving in school, and exploring their talents. But life, as it often does, had a way of testing even the strongest bonds. One ordinary morning, Clara's world was suddenly upended in a way she could never have imagined. It started with a knock at the door. Clara, busy preparing breakfast, opened it to find two stern-looking officers standing in the hallway. Their expressions were serious, and before she could ask why they were there, they informed her that she was under investigation for a legal matter she had no idea about. Shock and disbelief washed over her. She had always been careful, followed the rules, and done her best to provide for the children and the community. How could something like this be happening now? Clara was taken to the police station, questioned, and eventually arrested. She was told that she would face charges that could lead to a life sentence. At first, she could not believe it. It felt like a nightmare, an impossible situation that had nothing to do with the life she had built or the care she had provided. She tried to speak to the officers, to explain, but her words seemed to fall on deaf ears. The world she had worked so hard to create was suddenly slipping away. Back at the apartment, the children were devastated. Marcus, now a young man of 18, felt a deep anger and confusion. How could the woman who had given them everything, who had saved them from the streets, suddenly be treated like a criminal? Tommy, who had always expressed himself through art, sat silently, tears streaming down his face, struggling to understand the unfairness of it all. Lily and Mia clung to each other, frightened and uncertain about what the future held. Their safe haven had been taken from them, and they felt powerless to stop it. Despite their fear, the children refused to give up on Clara. They were determined to fight for her, just as she had fought for them all those years ago. Marcus stepped forward as the leader, organizing their efforts and keeping everyone focused. He researched legal procedures, learned about advocacy, and reached out to community members who might help. Tommy used his art to raise awareness, creating posters and illustrations that told their story in a way words sometimes could not. Lily used her musical talent to perform at local events, raising funds to help with legal fees. Even little Mia, though young, contributed by spreading the word among neighbors and friends, inspiring others to stand with them. Clara, meanwhile, struggled to stay strong from behind bars. The first days were overwhelming. She missed the children terribly and worried constantly about their well-being. But she also knew that they were capable, resourceful, and determined. Their love and loyalty were clear, and it gave her hope. She wrote letters, offering guidance, encouragement, and reassurance. She reminded them to stay united, to use their talents wisely, and to never lose hope, no matter how bleak the situation seemed. The children faced numerous obstacles. The legal system was complicated and intimidating, filled with paperwork, rules, and people who did not always listen. There were setbacks, deadlines missed, documents questioned, and moments when it seemed as though their efforts were in vain. Each challenge tested their determination, but they refused to give up. They drew strength from the years of love and guidance Clara had given them, remembering the sacrifices she had made and the unwavering support she had always provided. Community support began to grow. Neighbors who had once watched Clara's struggles from afar now rallied behind her and the children. Teachers, friends, and local business owners offered testimonials, donations, and advice. News of Clara's story began to spread, touching hearts and inspiring others to take action. People who had once doubted her capacity now marveled at her courage and the loyalty she had inspired in the children she had raised. Throughout this period, the children learned invaluable lessons. They discovered the power of persistence, the importance of teamwork, and the impact of speaking up for what is right. They learned to navigate a system that was often frustrating and unfair, gaining skills that would serve them for the rest of their lives. Most importantly, they learned that love and loyalty could overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles. Clara's influence had shaped them into resilient, compassionate, and determined individuals. Months passed, and the children's efforts began to show results. Legal advisors took interest in Clara's case, inspired by the story of her sacrifices and the devotion of the children she had raised. Evidence that had initially been overlooked was brought forward, showing her innocence and the extraordinary life she had built for the children. Witnesses came forward to testify about her character, her contributions to the community, and the love she had poured into the lives of those 4 children. Slowly but surely, the tide began to turn. Clara herself remained a source of inspiration throughout this ordeal. Even in the face of injustice, she encouraged the children not to give up. She reminded them that love and hope were powerful forces, stronger than fear or despair. Her letters, full of wisdom, kindness, and courage, became a guiding light for the children, reminding them why they were fighting and what they were fighting for. As the trial progressed, tension filled every moment. Each hearing was a test of endurance, patience, and faith. The children attended whenever possible, sitting quietly in the courtroom, holding hands and drawing strength from each other. They watched as lawyers, judges, and witnesses played their roles, but they never lost sight of the truth. Clara was not a criminal, she was the woman who had given them everything, the one who had saved their lives, and the one who deserved justice. Finally, after months of struggle, the decision came. Clara's life sentence was overturned. The courtroom erupted with emotion. Tears flowed freely as Clara was declared innocent, her name cleared, and her freedom restored. The children ran to her, embracing her tightly, crying tears of relief, gratitude, and overwhelming joy. It was a moment that seemed almost impossible, yet it was real, a testament to the power of love, determination, and family. The reunion was more than just a physical embrace. It was a celebration of hope, resilience, and the unbreakable bond that had carried them through the darkest times. Clara held each child close, whispering words of love and pride, while the children expressed their gratitude and devotion. They had fought for her, just as she had fought for them, and together they had overcome an obstacle that had once seemed insurmountable. In the days that followed, Clara returned home to the apartment she had built with so much care, now filled with even more laughter, love, and energy than before. The children, now young adults, continued to grow, guided by the lessons they had learned and the love that had shaped them. They had faced hardship, uncertainty, and fear, but through it all, they had remained united. Their dedication had saved Clara, and in doing so, they had strengthened the bonds of family in a way that would never be broken. The community, too, celebrated Clara's return. People who had once doubted her now praised her courage, selflessness, and the remarkable love she had shown the children. Her story became a source of inspiration, proving that one person's kindness could change many lives, and that loyalty, perseverance, and love could overcome even the most difficult challenges. Clara herself reflected on the journey. She had faced unimaginable fear and uncertainty, but she had also witnessed the incredible strength and dedication of the children she had raised. She realized that the hardships had not weakened them, they had made them stronger, more compassionate, and more resilient. And in that realization, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that her efforts had not only saved her life but had shaped the lives of the children in profound and lasting ways. Life did not immediately return to normal. There were adjustments, healing, and moments of reflection as they all processed the experience. But the bond they shared had been solidified by adversity. The children had proven their loyalty, resourcefulness, and love. Clara had demonstrated courage, patience, and unwavering commitment. Together, they had faced injustice, fought for what was right, and emerged stronger on the other side. Through it all, the apartment remained their sanctuary, a place where laughter, learning, and love continued to flourish. Clara continued to guide the children, helping them pursue their dreams, explore their talents, and build futures filled with hope and opportunity. And the children, in turn, continued to care for Clara, honoring the sacrifices she had made and the love she had shown. The experience also left an indelible mark on the community. Neighbors, inspired by the story, began to support each other more, offer help where it was needed, and recognize the power of kindness and perseverance. Clara's story became a symbol of hope, proving that even in the face of adversity, love, courage, and determination could triumph. And as Clara looked around at the 4 children she had raised, the young adults who had saved her life, who had fought tirelessly for justice, and who had become remarkable individuals in their own right, she knew that everything she had endured was worth it. Their success, loyalty, and love were living proof that her sacrifices had created something extraordinary, a family bound not by blood, but by choice, trust, and unwavering care. Clara stepped out of the courthouse, the sunlight warming her face in a way that felt almost like a new beginning. The months she had spent behind bars felt like a long, dark shadow over her life, but now it was finally behind her. She took a deep breath, feeling freedom in every fiber of her being. She had never felt relief so intense, so pure. Waiting for her outside were the 4 children who had grown into remarkable young adults: Marcus, Tommy, Lily, and Mia. They ran to her, arms wide, smiles breaking into tears, and the embrace that followed was long, tight, and full of the emotions that words could never fully capture. It was a moment of triumph, but also of reflection. Clara looked at the young people before her, remembering the frightened, wary children she had found on the streets 20 years ago. She thought about the sleepless nights, the sacrifices, and the constant struggles they had endured together. And now, seeing them standing strong, confident, and full of love, she felt a deep, indescribable pride. These were the children she had saved, yes, but they had also saved her in ways she could never have imagined. Returning to their apartment, which had once been small and modest, Clara noticed how much it had changed over the years. It was no longer just a shelter, it had become a true home. Walls were covered with drawings, artwork, and photographs documenting the lives they had built together. Books lined shelves that had once been empty. The air seemed to hum with energy, laughter, and the memories of countless shared moments. Every corner spoke of love, perseverance, and the unbreakable bond of a family forged not by blood, but by care, patience, and unwavering dedication. The children helped Clara settle back in, though it quickly became clear that their roles had changed. They were no longer the small, dependent children she had once guided so carefully. They had grown into capable, responsible young adults. Marcus, now a young man, had taken on much of the leadership and organization of the household. He coordinated jobs, finances, and schedules, easing the pressure on Clara while continuing to support his siblings. Tommy, with his art, had begun teaching local classes, sharing his talent and passion with other children. Lily's music had flourished, she performed in small community events, inspiring others with her talent. And Mia, still full of compassion, organized neighborhood volunteer efforts, spreading kindness in the ways Clara had taught them. Clara watched them in quiet awe, realizing how much they had grown and how deeply her influence had shaped them. Every small lesson, every patient conversation, every sacrifice she had made had contributed to the people they had become. And now, seeing them take charge, guide others, and thrive in the world, she felt a profound sense of fulfillment. Her life had not been easy, but it had been meaningful in ways that went far beyond herself. The children, in turn, made it clear that their love and gratitude went far beyond words. They organized a small celebration in the apartment, inviting neighbors and friends who had supported them over the years. There were laughter, tears, and stories shared about the struggles they had faced and the victories they had achieved together. Everyone present could see the deep bond between Clara and the children, the way they had fought for each other, and the remarkable transformation of 4 lives and one extraordinary woman. Clara also took time to reflect on the journey that had brought them here. She remembered the day she had first taken in the children, how frightened and hungry they had been, and how uncertain their futures looked. She thought about the countless nights she had stayed awake worrying about them, the long days she had worked to provide for them, and the challenges she had faced navigating a world that was not always kind. And she realized that every moment, every hardship, had been worth it. They had built a life together, a family defined by love, trust, and resilience. The children each took time to express their gratitude in their own unique ways. Marcus gave a heartfelt speech, acknowledging Clara's sacrifices and the guidance she had provided. Tommy created a large mural in the apartment, depicting their journey from streets to home, from fear to hope. Lily performed a song she had written specifically for Clara, expressing her love and appreciation. And Mia, with her gentle voice, spoke about the lessons of kindness and empathy she had learned, promising to carry them forward in everything she did. Clara's heart swelled with pride and love as she watched each of them, understanding that these gestures were not just about the past, they were a promise for the future. Life gradually returned to a sense of normalcy, though now it was marked by the joy of freedom, the excitement of new opportunities, and the comfort of knowing they were a family who had overcome unimaginable challenges together. Clara returned to her work, though she now had the support of the children, who helped manage responsibilities and household needs. The apartment became a hub of activity, learning, creativity, and love, where each member contributed their unique talents and skills. The experience had also strengthened their connection to the community. Neighbors who had watched their journey were inspired by it, seeing how one person's kindness could create a ripple effect of goodness and resilience. Clara and the children began to engage more actively in community projects, volunteering, mentoring, and sharing their story to inspire others. Their lives became a testament to the power of compassion, perseverance, and the belief that love can overcome even the greatest challenges. Clara often reflected on how much they had all changed. The children were no longer the frightened, lonely kids she had found on the streets. They were confident, skilled, and compassionate, ready to face the world and make it better. And through their actions, they had not only transformed themselves, they had transformed Clara's life, bringing her freedom, joy, and a renewed sense of purpose. Together, they had created a legacy of love, resilience, and hope. Even the smallest moments became precious. Breakfasts shared together, evenings spent discussing dreams, and quiet walks in the neighborhood reminded Clara and the children of how far they had come. They celebrated achievements, comforted each other in setbacks, and continued to build the life they had always dreamed of. Every laugh, every smile, and every shared moment reinforced the unbreakable bond they had formed, a bond that had carried them through hardship and now guided them toward a bright future. Clara also began to look beyond the immediate family, considering ways to help other children who were in situations similar to those her own had once faced. She worked with local shelters, schools, and organizations to provide guidance, mentorship, and support, sharing her story to inspire others to take action. The children joined her efforts, using their talents to create programs, organize events, and mentor young kids in need. Together, they became a force for good, turning their own experiences of hardship into tools for helping others. As the years continued, the family's bond remained strong. The children pursued their dreams with determination, supported by Clara's love and guidance. They navigated challenges, celebrated successes, and continued to grow into responsible, compassionate adults. Clara, proud of all they had accomplished, continued to nurture their talents, encourage their ambitions, and provide the love that had always been the foundation of their family. Looking back, Clara understood the full impact of her decision to take in those 4 homeless children so many years ago. What had begun as an act of kindness had grown into a lifetime of love, learning, and extraordinary achievements. The children had given her more than she could ever have imagined: the joy of family, the satisfaction of watching them thrive, and the ultimate reward of seeing her life restored and her sacrifices honored. Their story became a symbol of hope for many. People were inspired by the journey of a woman who, against all odds, had taken in 4 children and changed their lives forever. They were inspired by the children, who had never given up on the woman who had loved them unconditionally. And they were inspired by the message that kindness, courage, and persistence could overcome even the most difficult circumstances. Clara's life, once filled with struggle and uncertainty, was now marked by gratitude, fulfillment, and love. She knew that the road had been long and difficult, but the rewards were immeasurable. She had created a family, nurtured lives, and demonstrated that one person's compassion could truly change the world. And as she looked around at Marcus, Tommy, Lily, and Mia, her children, in every meaningful way, she knew that the story was far from over. Together, they would continue to face life with courage, hope, and love, creating new memories, helping others, and inspiring everyone who crossed their path. In the quiet moments, When the apartment was calm and the children were pursuing their own projects, Clara would often sit and reflect on the journey. She thought about the day she had first found them, hungry and scared on the streets, and smiled at how far they had come. She understood that the greatest gift she had ever received was not just their love or loyalty, it was the opportunity to shape lives, to witness growth, and to experience the extraordinary bond that comes from choosing family, nurturing it, and never giving up. Clara knew that life would continue to bring challenges, as it always does. But she also knew that the love they shared, the lessons they had learned, and the bonds they had forged would guide them through whatever lay ahead. And in that knowledge, she felt peace, joy, and a deep, unshakable gratitude for the incredible journey that had begun with an act of kindness 20 years ago, and had transformed all of their lives forever.